Hello and welcome to Swatches Art Livestream number 107. I'm your host, illustrator Clint Curley, and we have a variety of things that we're going to be going over on this live stream, including talking about a launch of a new class on Skillshare. That's something new that we haven't done before. It'd be fun to have a new challenge going along with that, and we've got a review, an art piece that I somehow overlooked last week. And of course, if you guys have questions or comments that you would like to hear me weigh in on, then feel free to put that into the chat. Okay, we are going to just run through some of the announcements, bring you up to date on what's going on with Swatches art, and then we will get into some of the content. This will give everybody a chance to join in the live stream and get situated before we really get into things. If you are joining in the chat, let me know. Give me a holler of where you are joining in from. And I'm always curious to see that. And of course, if you do have questions, just put swatches at the beginning of your comment and it will flag that for me. And I will try to answer it during the course of the program. Okay, OBS and YouTube telling me there's no problems with the connection, which is great. Then we can just move right into things. All right, like I said, we're covering a couple of things on this episode. Normally, the Friday live streams are all about reviewing the art challenge entries, but we do not have a current one to review, so we're doing a medley of different things. Okay, announcements. If you have not been on the community boards or Discord or anything, you may not have realized that Illustrating Commissions, the professionals process, which is an art class, is launching on Skillshare tomorrow. Now, I have not ever put anything on Skillshare before, but I started using it recently, and I thought, wait, this could be a really great home for some of my material. So I got a material that I created and released last June through Patreon, and I made some edits to it so that it would fit on the Skillshare platform. That is, that things are broken up into about 5-minute lessons. It is about 3.25 hours of content. And they're broken up into approximately 5-minute sections so that you could easily catch one during, a little downtime here or there. You can just watch one little lesson and then follow along with it. And the art challenge is going to be part of that launch. So Skillshare allows you to have all of your lessons out there, and you can have a class project. So this art challenge is part of that class project. If you are going to be interested in this challenge, I am going to assume that you're going to go watch the class out there and that you can find the information there on the Skillshare class page. Oh, I knocked over my light. Sorry about that. I forgot that I set it on that box on the other side of the table. Anyway, where was it? Yes, so this will be connected to that. It will be the same normal thing of if you want to get into the art challenge, you'll need to get a ticket from the Gumroad. That will be at noon tomorrow when those will be available. Otherwise, you will need to go watch the class lessons and follow along with that plan. And I'm trying to put together a list of actions to take. And if I can, I'll put that together and put it out there. Otherwise, you should have enough information to go on. Okay, so the illustration class walks you through the entire illustration process from reading the brief and creating an outline, kind of game plan of how you're going to approach the illustration. Goes through each of the steps, like creating thumbnails based on simple designs, goes through value schemes, color schemes, creating those sorts of things. And it is a book cover is the project that I example throughout that. So the new challenge is I wanted to have something that was along those lines. So the new challenge is a fictional book cover project. And let me switch over here. The new challenge is called First Star to the Right. It would be a young adult novel cover. Just glancing over, let's see. Hey, just a shout out to the people joining in the chat. I do appreciate you joining in live. It's always great to see a live audience. Pius, Matthew, Desert Knight, Mikhail. Mikhail coming from Sweden. Hey, that's sweet. Montana, very good. South Africa. On Denmark. It looks like we have more international than nationals today. That's pretty cool. Joachim, good to see ya. Kamui? I'm going to give a guess there. All right, so let's run through the description of what this project is. I wrote this up yesterday. I was trying to think of something that would be fun, that would be open to a lot of different kinds of artists and what they like, and that you could very clearly use the information from the class into what this challenge would be. All right, so top line. A new malice spreads, and with its influence, a colliding of the other worlds. Alice of Wonderland, Peter of Neverland, and the leopard, Bagheera of the jungle, unite against the threat. The ever-curious Alice won't quit until she knows what has reshaped Wonderland. With Captain Hook swallowed by TikTok, Peter Pan sets his sights on a new grand adventure, and Bagheera must find the man-cub Mowgli, who was taken by the malice. Depictions. Alice, age 12, should be wearing a period-appropriate dress, as you're used to seeing Alice. She'd have long blonde hair and should also be wearing or holding the Mad Hatter's top hat. Peter, also age 13, presumably forever, wears his classic greens, could be bare-chested. There's, ultimate versions of how Peter can be designed, and carries Hook's rapier sword. Bagheera is an adult Black Panther with scars from his fight with Shere Khan, the tiger. Scenes. We have a couple of different scenes that you could choose from. I've created about 5 of them, just to get you going. The trio are in free fall with large playing cards encircling them. Note, the cards do not show the usual suits, but instead the symbols of keyholes, skulls, and hourglasses. One card should be golden with a luminescent inkwell and feathered quill pictured on it. Throughout the story, there is a key element, which is the golden inkwell and quill. This is at the story, the center of the story. And they find depictions of it on various items throughout the story before finally at the conclusion of the story being able to find the actual item and the person who possesses it. And that person has incredible power to reshape the different worlds. Number 2. In a shadowy and overgrown garden, the trio are being threateningly surrounded by the flying monkeys of Oz. Also include Toto of Oz with the trio since they would have met up at this point in the story. Peter and Bagheera stand at guard, ready to fight, while Alice clutches the golden playing card with the picture of inkwell and quill. Number 3. Show the back of the heroes as they look ahead at a landscape of pirate ships hanging in space before a star-filled with rope bridges and gangplanks stretched between the ships. Various lanterns are lit on the ships, which cast light across the listing decks. In the far distance floats a massive golden door in the shape of a keyhole. Number 4. A side view of the trio progressing from left to right through a bramble vines. Alice rides Bagheera as Peter flies at her side with Tinkerbell. And lastly, a tight crop of the characters filling all the canvas. Alice wearing her top hat and protecting the golden card. Peter gives a roguish grin with a rapier visible, and Bagheera is resolute. This version could be more graphical. Use your creativity, and you may arrange them even in the silhouette of a keyhole. So, just to encompass all of that, these are the different scenes that you could choose from. There was some play there about how the people would be arranged, what composition you're using, what style you're working in, where the camera is located, and all that. You could do your own slight variations or depictions of all of these characters, as long as they're somewhat recognizable as their classic characters. And tomorrow, if you want to get feedback from me, you will need to pick up a ticket so that in 2 weeks you can send in your concepts. I will review them, and then 2 weeks later, we will be reviewing your finals. However, you can get access to this and all of the illustration class material out on Skillshare. I will be sharing links to the exact page of where that is available tomorrow as soon as it gets posted. I don't know the link until I actually post it. So I will be putting that across the various platforms. If you do have questions about this particular challenge, feel free to put them in the chat or leave a comment in the video if you're watching the recording of this episode. I will try to address those. Okay, going back to announcements. Anything else I need to talk about with that? The materials lessons may be delayed. I've been announcing that they will be out by for this month with Patreon. I will probably still try to do that, but lately I've just been putting in too many hours with different projects, and I realized that I need to back off on some time in order to take care of some other stuff. So it may be that I may have to delay that because I've got to get some other things taken care of, and I can't be putting in as many long hours without stop. So real life is kind of getting in the way with that. We'll see. I need to really look again at how much has to get done and whether I can really get that done in the next week or so. If you do want to connect with the community, we have a great community out on the Discord channel. We do have the Facebook group as well. I just think the Discord is easier to get to the information you want. It's easier to connect with other people. A lot of people hang out in the audio or video chat room. A great place to get feedback from the community to improve your artwork. You can find the link there. And if you want to schedule a one-on-one consult with me, as usual, you can go to art-mentor.com and schedule a one-on-one consult, and we can talk about your art progress, problem solve your image, talk about motivation or education, wherever you are, whatever you're facing with your art journey, we will discuss it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get first into the feedback here. Somehow I overlooked this piece, and maybe I checked the images too early, I'm not sure. But I was supposed to review this last week as part of the art challenge. But anyway, we're going to do it now, and let's take a look at it. This is from the Hasori characters, being sent in by Impar. This is, I had a lot of fun with this challenge, quite happy with the result. I realize my skill at material rendering is quite poor. Maybe improving that should be the next step for me. I would appreciate if you could recommend me some good resources or tutorials on the matter, as my goal is to achieve a more realistic style. I don't have one major resource to point you to on that one. That is frankly one of the reasons that I started making the materials course, is because I couldn't find a comprehensive course on the subject, or resource on the subject. There is a variety of somewhat helpful little one-page tutorials out on Pinterest. Uh, you could probably search by what material you're looking for, like how to paint gold, how to paint hair, how to paint, that sort of thing. And I have found some out there that were somewhat helpful. So I would recommend that. But for right now, let's hit on a couple of things that when you're looking at improving this on your artwork, what should you be paying attention to? The first thing I think you have to pay attention to is the... Oh, I have smoothing on. Let me turn that off. The first thing is the material behavior. That's what I've been calling it. Other people may call it something else. And what I'm talking about there is how the actual physicality of that material behaves. We're talking about the rigidity of something, the way that it bends. Or does it bend? Does it fold? Does it crinkle? How does it move? How does it contort? Because you're going to have something like fabric that is going to behave very different than metal. And if you put strain on them, they're going to behave differently. And if there was a force like a wind blowing on it, it's going to behave differently. So that is the first thing that we have to get right. And understanding, particularly with folds, I think that's one of the first ones that you should start with, is a study of fold behavior. There is classically basically 5 different kinds of folds that exist. There were little tutorials, YouTube videos, and stuff about drawing folds. I would suggest go out there and watch and find some of those, because that will help you be able to identify what kinds of folds should exist where. And you will have at least a working mental library of how folds should behave, how cloth behaves, and that would help improve the general material rendering. After that, something that you want to be paying attention to is the glossiness. This is something that I'm covering in the materials course, and you can break this up into 3 different categories. You have matte, which is something that is not glossy at all. It's really, really flat. It's not reflective at all. Something like this little hand towel would be very matte. You can look at it, no highlights. There's no sheen, no highlights on that. A lot of fabric is that way, unless it is made of some sort of like silken material, satin, something on that line, or if it has metallic threads and that sort of thing. Then next you would have luster. Now luster is not really shiny, it's not really matte. Skin usually would be considered luster. If under the right condition, you can get a diffused highlight on it, but otherwise it's not going to show a reflection, and it will have a little highlight depending on the right angle and the right lighting situation. Then lastly, you're going to have shiny. And shiny will have very clear highlights or specular lights. Beyond that, you could even consider, basically it just becomes mirror-like. Those things would be like chrome or an actual mirror. And that's where you get into some other things. It's not about highlights, it's about actually reflecting the entire environment. But we won't hit on that. So when you go to each material, you want to break it into one of these categories. And for each one of these, the way that you handle the rendering is going to change. Down here, you're going to have no highlights. Here, you're going to have diffused highlights. And over here, you could have specular highlights, right? And then you're also going to be registering those in terms of values. Now, this is going to have a very limited value scheme. It resists going really bright and it resists going really dark. It tries to stay whatever the local color is of it. This will have a wider value range, with shiny being able to show the widest value range. And those parameters right there, you address those, and that can just really, really step up your material rendering. So that would be my input on that. I go over this, or will be going over this in a lot of detail with a lot of examples, full explanations in the materials lessons coming out. Okay. MS says, hey, I would like to say that you really helped me become professional. I'm doing a card game illustrations at the moment because of you. Hey, that is awesome. Hey, very, very pleased that you let me know. I sometimes, I toss all this information out there and I never know if anybody was able to get it and run with it, but that's cool. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so as far as this particular piece, you said I spent all my time with the male figure and left the face for the last minute. Okay. Well, on the whole, I think this is working pretty well. It's nice and clean. That is, everything is very tidy and very understandable. Consistent color scheme, a lot of consistent design going on. So I don't really feel like this is a lot of correcting. Anatomy looks pretty good. So we're looking at doing tweaks to improve this. Really, no major oversights, I think, here. What could we consider doing? Well, one thing is he feels a little stiff. So I would try to give him maybe a little more looseness, a little more naturalness to the pose. Because I feel like his upper body is very static. This is a very static sort of pose. And the lower body is he's walking. So there's kind of a discrepancy there. And the other thing is he's very much straight up and down. I would see about giving some more curvature to the upper body. He's obviously very masculine and bare-chested, strong, but we just have his chest going straight down. So I would play into that by kind of putting the shoulders back, putting the chest forward a little bit more, and that would help. Another edit I was thinking of is the staff. This is another one where the staff is completely vertical, but if you're walking, you don't walk with the staff completely vertical the whole time. You're constantly swinging it. So only at a certain point are you ever going to see it actually vertical. I find that it would probably be more likely, a little more natural, if the staff had a lean to it, so that when he's about to take another step, he's going to pull it forwards, right? So it's going to have more of that. Okay, what else are we looking at? I like a lot of the design going on over here. There's enough to look at without going crazy. Yeah, see, like even on this guy, we can see that arch to that guy's body overall. And I think that that could work a little better. This knee feels like it's almost coming to this side, that right side, where his body is obviously turned the other direction. So I'm going to see about getting that leg to actually curve this way more. And that would be able to help turn the body a little bit there. This arm also kind of catches me a little bit. He's a very masculine character with almost a really kind of a dainty pose with his hand. I'm not sure why he would do that. It's like a balancing thing to have your hand out sideways like that. I would adjust that just so that he's in more of a natural walking pose. His arm can be back a little bit, but I don't see that he would have his hands out like that while he was walking. That seemed a little odd. MS says, I did. Most likely a lot of people did too. Hey, Emma, I was just curious, where did you find your commission? How were you contacted, or how did you pick that up? People always like to know that sort of thing. Yeah, we just started talking about your piece. Again, I don't know how to pronounce that name. Ujin? Damn, got here late, but I'm here now. We'll rewatch it. Yeah, we were just talking about the pose, the arm, the hand pose seem almost like a little dainty. Doesn't really go along with the kind of the masculine character that you've got going on here. So I'm thinking just a more normal arm pose there is probably fine. I mean, he's wearing purple. Yeah, but that's because he's rich. He's royal. He was the offspring of some well-to-do people, I'm guessing. Okay, now let's talk about, so I did some of these edits earlier, curving that chest out a little bit, moving that staff over, giving a little lean to that, just adjusting that arm into more of a natural position. And this is something that kind of catches me though, is we've got it wrapped all the way around his head, but it's almost too symmetrical. That's one of the things I actually like about this one over here is that there is asymmetry to it. It hangs long to that side, right? Or you've got this lady that has the hood around, but we can see the ends of it fluttering off behind. And either one of those, I think, is probably a better option than what we have. So here, you could think, okay, well, this is wrapped around. Okay, cool. Then have like one end of it that is kind of hanging down on a side, right? And just to break up the symmetry of it. Or you've got what the other lady does, and you're showing the tail pieces of it kind of fluttering off again behind him. So consider doing one of those in order just to break up the symmetry there. And I was also thinking that we could get a better read from the hair, a better silhouette that would also mimic the direction of the wind. So we've got a little wind, a breeze kind of coming across this way. And then we want to show the hair kind of following that maybe that's catching a little breeze. Because dreadlocks are fairly stiff, we do want to have some kind of coming off the other side. But most of them are coming off this right side over here. I find it really hard to break symmetry. I do it unconsciously. No, and that's normal. That is normal to follow symmetry. It is something that you learn to do, is to try to intentionally place asymmetric elements. So the more that you do it, the more that you'll think to do it. And ultimately, that can improve a lot of characters. Some of them you do want to be quite symmetrical, but I don't feel like this is that sort of guy. So, this is where I think a good place to put that in is. Okay, what else? Anything else in that was kind of... I think we could get a better golden sheen to this. Right now, it just looks like a light, really light skin tone. It doesn't really have a golden sort of gleam to it. So we need to go in and add a lot more of those nice saturated colors, getting over into the yellows and the oranges and the bright highlights, and that should help that gold to read a bit better. With the bottoms of the fabric here, we do want to add some more variance. Yeah, more wrinkles. Like if you look at the bottom of this, you can notice what it's doing there. And essentially you can make a little loopy line. Oh, no, that's... Yeah. Try to make that smaller. So you can do this line. This line represents the bottom of all of the fabric. Then what you can do is go and just connect the bottom up with wherever it's anchored to. And some places it's going to overlap other places. And that's the way it would actually work. And that's how you can kind of generate that. And so over here, we've got this like a little too even. And we need to change that up a bit so that maybe it's doing something more like this. Now, this is a common mistake that I see a lot. And this can occur, but it's not usually the best option. And that is, you can see it easing in. It eases in this side and eases out that side. Where in actuality, you're going to have an overlap, which is probably more common, which is this is going behind that. You've got basically a straight edge as this is coming back around. Then you've got this, and that's overlapping. And then it's going around. So you don't see it ease in and out on each side because it's actually overlapping itself. And so you just have a more distinct pattern here. This catches me off a little bit. This is some little things. But we're talking about rendering material and folds a little bit, so I will point it out. This shape is very even all the way down, and it would be better to do something more interesting with that. We want to take it into more of a triangular pattern. Yeah, triangular shape. Is this Photoshop? Yes, I'm in Photoshop right now. So here, I don't know why we would be seeing the back side of that fabric, the outside of the fabric. I feel like we would just be seeing the inside of it. If we see the top of it a little bit, because it's maybe coming out around here, I still feel like it's probably going to loop back on itself. And then we're going to get the underside of the fabric somewhere here. But wherever this comes through, you're probably going to see a collection of folds coming out where it loops back on itself and makes that change. And these are all going to be anchored here. Personally, I would probably break that up just so it's not one perfect one right in the middle. And break it up into some smaller ones. So that would be a little more interesting, and then you can decide what you want to do. Personally, I would probably do this sort of thing and have like a piece hanging down here. Maybe even some more on the back side over there. I'm almost feeling like some sort of bracelets or bracers would be nice on this guy. Because he's got quite a bit of other stuff. You know, he's got quite a few different items wrapped around him with little gold beads or whatever those are. So I think that would work on him pretty well. What about the staff? I'm trying to think if there's something more interesting that we could do with the staff. Something carved into it may be nice. I think some golden designs that maybe have kind of rubbed off on it, but it had some sort of nice little golden pattern. And then that sort of fades off as it goes down. That would help connect the gold across the characters. That could be good. As far as the lady, I mean, a lot of the same things go on with like the folds here. I feel like maybe the three-dimensionality of them aren't really working that well. But we need to make sure that this is looping around this in a realistic fashion. It's getting really high at the back of her head. May get that a little more front-weighted there. Again, we need to get a brighter... We need to get a brighter sheen, a more metallic feel from this. Right now, it just looks like a lighter skin tone kind of breaking across there. Yeah, and here we've got this at a real tilt all the way across. I feel like we need to see that tilt down a little bit on the other side. Otherwise, it just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. The whole thing would have to be very lopsided on her head for that to work. We need to see that coming down a little bit over here. And then rounding off maybe a bit more like that. Yeah. Yeah, he could have some sort of items floating around the top of the staff. You know, you could easily have some sort of magical effect of some little golden orbs or light motes or something if he's a magic user. Yeah, that's what's coming to mind on these. Taking care of that, I think we just add a bit more of just a bit more extra to it that feels a little more believable. It has more interesting folds. It's got a bit of extra patterns added into it. The silhouette is slightly more interesting. No one of these things is going to just revolutionize the piece, but collectively they can bring up the overall quality quite a bit. So that's what I'd be looking at facing on this particular piece. Tim says, hey Clint, my fiance surprised me on my birthday with an Apple Pencil Gen 2 and the pressure sensitivity is awesome. Currently working on several environment pieces. We'll post on Discord soon. Very cool. I've got an old Apple Pencil I got with my iPad, and it stopped working about a year after I bought it. So yeah, I was a little disappointed in the Apple Pencil as much as I paid for it. So hopefully Gen 2 works better than that. But sounds like you might have a good one there if they got you an Apple Gen 2 pencil for your art. Okay, that's all I was going to cover on that one. Hopefully you find this one helpful as far as the review and the little discussion on the materials. So let's jump to something else. Oh yeah, I could share some of these. I was thinking of different, I may be including some inspiration images along with the art challenge. So that could be just like classic animated Alice, you know, just to have a clue what sort of depiction of Alice is. This is Arthur Rackham's early illustrations for Alice in Wonderland. I think he did this in 1907. I've always been a real big fan of this piece. That's one of my favorite pieces just of all time. I just really like this piece. And so it can be more of that sort of, you know, version of Alice. Here is an image of Bagheera from the more recent, like, live action. I mean, he's completely computer generated, but Bagheera from 2016, I think it was. As far as rendering styles, you could use something like Jason Chan. He has a nice series of book covers that he did following these characters. So it could be something more dramatic, sort of fantasy depiction like this, or it could even be something like James Jean's beautiful illustrative work for Fables. He did Fables comic covers for years, and he's got some really nice renderings for those. So I think anything like that would work really well for this particular challenge. I was also remembering Peter Pan, the live action Peter Pan from 2005-ish, 2006, something like that. I forgot when that came out. But yeah, and there was that version. If you were going to do like a more realistic Peter, that can be a good thing to take a look at there. Now, okay, now what I'm going to do is take a look at just a character design process I've been playing around with recently. Nothing too unusual. It just has a few little tweaks to what maybe people are used to doing. I can show you some of the stuff that I've been doing with it. Continuing on with the Oberon project, the little back burner personal project I work on occasionally. This will be taking place in the world of the Fae. Oberon, of course, being the king of the fairies in classic folklore. And I was playing around with different creatures, creature types that could exist in the Fae. None of these are particular characters, they are just kind of archetypes that I would then develop through iterations to get to characters. And playing around with each one's kind of different. This I was just going for a whole variety of different ones. This is where I would get a particular type, different archetype. In this case, I grabbed this guy right here. And then I brought him down and I created multiple versions of him. And then over here, I grabbed one of the other guys. Whichever one I grabbed this one over here. Brought him down and created some versions of that. Whatever inspired me. And then also did these, which are kind of like shades. They're the echoes of a warrior that's kind of brought back. And they're all charcoal and fiery ash and that sort of thing. And these are the little skeleton character that is expounded on. And I did a couple of them. I started a more refined version of a couple of them. I haven't done this guy yet, so I did these two. And I'm playing around with those. But what I've really enjoyed with this particular process is working where you already have some of the background colors and tone coming through. And for me, it adds in a great element of unpredictability. It adds in some randomness into the design so that I can actually start playing off a little bit of the background colors and not just having to focus only on the silhouette, but to kind of adjust the silhouette and the design based on the influence of the tone that goes, the background tones and stuff. So how would you go about doing this? Well, what I did is I went out to some stock photo sites that have royalty-free images. The two that I primarily used was Pexels. You can just go out to Pexels and you can download photos to use for free, or Unsplash. Those are both royalty-free photos. A couple of questions coming in. Cam says, is drawing trees with roots all over the place good when you're starting out with drawing? Been drawing for a few months. I find it hard to concentrate on a single root if there's too many of them in a reference. Ooh, man, I almost need to see what you're looking at. Drawing trees with roots is, yeah, I generally consider that good practice. What you want to do is make sure that you're considering them in terms of volume, and you can render them out as a series of tubes, and then nothing on that. Okay. You want to consider them as a series of tubes and then connect them together so that they actually form what you might consider roots. So say that we're looking at this and we're fairly low. We're kind of looking up at this tree. Let's say, well, okay, well, this one, this, and this one does this. And you can actually sketch them in as cylinders. I got a cylinder here and here. And then there is another one that comes out here. And I'm going to put another cylinder that comes across this one. And he has an angle change. And this helps keep in mind the actual volume of what's going on. Right? Because it's easy to get to the point where you're just making a bunch of kind of randomly lines. But what you can do at this point is this starts telling you the actual forms. And I can be like, well, I know where this is going to sag due to gravity. So when I go into rendering that, I can make sure that that's looping over top. Same place, you're going to have some gravity feed there. I know where this is going to wrinkle. So this is probably going to push out right there. It's probably going to push out where it connects on that side. I can start adding some rocks around here. It's then going to wrinkle around the rocks. It's going to be pushed around a little bit as it does that. And so go sketch it in very lightly as a series of tubes. And you can have jointed tubes. And it's probably better to add joints in them and then start a new one instead of just trying to do randomly kind of curvy tubes, because that gets a little more difficult to try to handle. Anyway, hopefully that gives you a little direction. So I've already created a series of textures. This is autumn foliage, and all I did was get a photo of some autumn photo and adjust it. So we're going to go through that process with a different one. In this case, let's grab this one. I have not made a texture of this one yet. And if you're going to be doing this process, what you want to do is focus on creating a fairly monotonous, consistent texture across the scene. So in this case, most of the information that I want or the texture I would like to use is right within this area. This and this are too out of focus and it's too simple, and I don't really want that. So I'm going to just grab this section. And you probably have to play with this for a bit to get what you really want. And that's okay. And we will. But just to let you know, it may take a while because I tend to be a little picky. I'm going to just erase that out until I have a bit more there. Spax, I'm doing good. How are you doing? It does not want me to rotate that. Okay. Already we're getting a lot better tone going on. Okay, now I can just flatten those down. And then I'm going to get a new layer and go up to my clone stamp tool. And for this one, in order to help keep the pattern better, I'm going to choose this shape, which is a kind of a somewhat rectangular-ish shape. Oh, thank you. Make sure it's set to sample all layers. And then areas that are a little more bland, I'm going to just choose somewhere else and start painting it in. And this is also going to be somewhat random because it's picking them out in kind of rectangular patterns. This is all going to just be serving as a background texture for whatever I paint the silhouettes in. And I'm trying to keep it so it has a fairly even values, details, and tones going across it. I think already we're getting pretty close. I'm not going to spend much longer. I feel like that is actually pretty good right there. So I will just flatten that back down. And now I will go grab that, just copy that. And we need to open up, thank you. That's what Photoshop actually needs to update, because it'll keep telling you if you have something copied on your clipboard and you go to open the browser, it'll say, I can't hold it because it's too big. They really need to add a don't tell me this again, because I get it every single day, sometimes many times a day, depending on what program's going through. So anybody from Adobe, if you're listening, give me a don't show this, menu again option. That would be really handy. Or just show it to me if I'm actually trying to paste it. If I'm not trying to paste it, I don't really care. It doesn't matter. Okay, now what I'm going to do is go in and do another another one like this, but of a new design. So we'll just call this Oberon Concepts 4. Computer is laggy. Yeah, it's. Did you? Okay, it's trying to grab multiple layers here. So what I have, if you're going to be setting up your own, I actually have multiple layers turned on with this one. And the main one is this sort of gray background. But that's the live paint layer. We're going to start by getting rid of some of these other ones. We don't need all these. We'll build it up from scratch so you can see. This is all put inside of a... We did not copy that. Interesting. There we go. I'm going to put it inside of this folder. Just because of the way that I'm setting this up, I want it set up that. That's the older folder. I don't really need this. I didn't prep this before stream, so I'm just having to reset something. But here is anything that I paint white on this layer mask, which you can actually apply to a folder, then that will show up anything in the folder, like you can see here. So I'm just going to cancel that. And then I'm going to come up here and see which one do I want to do? Which one do I feel something about here? We'll grab this one. Sure, we'll just grab this one. And then I'm going to move that one down. Oh, did not copy it. All right, now we have multiple copies of my basic design and pose. And now I can come in here and do variations of it by painting into the layer mask. I've not really messed with these, so this can take a little bit depending on how particular you want to be. I'm just using the 100% brush. Actually, I might use my curvy one. I have a it behaves the same way though. Now I'm looking at this and I'm going to start kind of coming into it and messing around with the silhouette. But I'm going to just... I've got to resize that earlier. The other thing that can be nice to do with this is actually create a little light to dark pattern. I did delete that layer, so we'll just set up a new one. We can just set in a exposure layer inside of the group. I'm going to set the exposure down so it gets dark. I just wanted to get dark at the bottom. Means that I'm going to grab a gradient. White to black gradient. So I can turn that on and off, and you can see where it gets dark towards the bottom of the character. And it's just a nice, simple variation there. So I'm just sort of building in a little tonal and color option. And it's also nice if you have a accent tone. These, probably one is an accent. No, I'm going to play, I did this armor one, which I haven't successfully really used yet. I haven't had it to come off right. It's just a helmet, and I did a bunch of clone stamping of this helmet and breast armor. But let's see if we can get it to do anything. Photoshop says wait. Probably running too many programs. There we go. I don't need it going across those guys. I just busy. I could see about trying to run it in player mode. Maybe not. Put mask on it. That's kind of interesting. So none of these are fixed. Like I could easily adjust any of these later. But just for a variety of kind of shapes and tones going on. Okay, good enough for now. Normally, I would spend about, I think I averaged it out to something like 7 minutes a character. But this is a classic way to do character design, is starting with that silhouette and trying to establish a really nice silhouette to begin with. Then you would actually go in to doing the designing of the individual characters and the details after the silhouette is established. Instead of, it's an outside in way to approach it rather than inside out. You got to be thinking about what is it about this silhouette that's, unique. What is it that's going to be kind of iconic about him? And here I'm really looking for a big boxy. I actually kind of want a boxy frame because he's just this big imposing character. I don't know what these things are sticking out, but they look good. Outside in rather than inside out. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, because you're, especially for video games, silhouettes are more important than details because you're going to be seeing characters by their silhouette and recognizing them and moving really quickly, and you're really going to actually get to see the details of the character. So it's just the broad strokes of their silhouette and their overall kind of color and their general feel rather than the details of, the straps and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I'm thinking about. Now this is getting long down here. I am thinking a little bit about, okay, what is this thing? Is it a cloak? Is it like a cape that's coming down the back? Just because I have to know kind of where to put that, and then should it be blowing? Should there be some movement to it, or is it more static? And as far as the colors, all I'm having to do is switch from white to black, which is hitting the X key. You just hit the X key, and it's going to flip-flop the foreground, background color. So I'm not having to go brush to eraser. I'm just hitting the X key to either add or subtract the paints. I like the wide stance here. And I guess he has like really big boots. I don't really care. do kind of like the idea of like these big gauntlet things. But I do want to, I want to hit like a in cut right there so it's really clear that the gauntlet is out. Don't know that I'm loving this now. If we can take that out and what we get. And this is just all part of the iteration process. You just, you know, you take time, work through it, see what you come up with. Maybe he has like a helmet on with a all piece front. Or like this is where I could look at this design that's in the background color and think like maybe there's a piece right there. Normally might not grab a, you know, sketch a piece like that. But I kind of see that piece in this design, so I'm going to put that in and just let that inspire me a little bit. Perhaps he has like a cut in the back of his cloak, just kind of a V cut. Could be nice that it actually gets wide and angles down. So it gets to the V cut and then it sort of comes up on the other side. Yeah, I'm kind of liking that. I feel like that's getting a little character there. If you want, you can actually do inverse. I don't always do this, but just to sort of show you the process. That if you've got a really important object going in front of the other object, you can just do a paint out. And then whenever it stops getting in front of the other one, you inverse it again. I do it occasionally, but in this case, but keep that in mind. Sometimes that's I do have like little flares or wings or something on the ends of. Yeah. Okay, for the next one, maybe we actually play up some of the shapes that we didn't last time. Here, that head is overall just too tall and skinny for what I want. You can be loose in your original ones. Oh yeah, I didn't really talk about this a lot. So what you want to do is you start with doing what you could consider your archetypes. It's just a quick doodle to represent that kind of character. And you're not trying to be precise about it. You're not trying to actually design a character. This is more just a reminder of what this thing is about. So I'm thinking like skeletal creature that has a oversized weapon and something wide on the head, horns or helmet or something. This one is some sort of creature that has antlers or horns and it has wings. Okay. Some sort of cloaked figure with a long weapon. And that's what these are. Then you just do what I'm doing here, which is you copy it, you paste it down, and then you make alternate versions of it. And then you get the best one out of that, and you do a more refined version of it. So that's what I'm doing on the other ones that I've already closed. All right, never mind. Where are the other ones? So that's what I was doing with these. I was going back through them and like cleaning them up after I did a series of them and picked out my favorite one. Here I'm going to play with these tall shapes sticking out. We do have that sword or something strapped about his back, but I want to make sure that that is visible here. Maybe I'll have like the hilt of the toward there, make it a little more clear what's going on with that. It's just that those shapes are sort of pushing into each other. These almost feel like feathers, which could be neat if there was some like giant kind of crow feathers coming off the top of his cloak. Like that idea. Yeah. And then is his silhouette going to change any? Yeah, I think this one might be nice if we get a little more kind of like the V shape to the upper body. Have a high waist, and then let it go long. Still kind of boxy, but at least we can make out a little more on the body there. So he's got like really broad, I'm kind of thinking in terms of the shapes, right? So the upper body is nice and wide. This, and it's sort of countered by that shape. So this is short and wide, and this one's kind of like longer and a little more narrow. I think those work out pretty well. Will you try making one that's much leaner? Maybe not a lot leaner, because that's more of what this other body type is, and that's more of the lean warrior. These are all going to be a little more heavy. This will probably be about the leanest version of the heavier guys. I like this line that we already have across here. I think that's a nice indicator that there could be some belts there. And I want to look at that background design a little bit, just to see if it helps spark some ideas of what to do. I think this is probably one that having some stair-steppy patterns could look good. Armor pieces, perhaps, coming down. And then maybe gauntlets that aren't quite so, maybe more of just like a farm. And for this sort of thing, you probably could play up things like the size of the fists, because you need to read that pretty well in this level of silhouette. You can play some of that up. Now here I just want a simple shape, like does it arch up? Does it arch down? Does it come all the way to the ground? Does it have an angle kind of like this, right? Dan, haven't seen this process before. These are looking sweet. Yeah, Dan, I like this one particularly because it feels like I establish a lot of information very quickly. I can get to these sorts of results really quick because most of that is just determined by the silhouette and that background color. And then it's easy to go from that provided silhouette to just cleaning up some of the edges, some of the little extra details, adding some extra little mossy stuff coming down, putting some patterns on it. And even that would just be just a refined concept. You could then take that and properly redraw it and turn it into a full illustration or add another secondary light to it. These, as you notice, don't have any major light going on. They just have a simple soft light or ambient light from the top, and it gets a little more shadowed at the bottom, and it's somewhat top lit, but the softness of the light keeps most of things in the mid-tone with no really sharp shadows or high contrast to deal with, which, like I've said before, makes it much faster to paint. So you can establish a whole bunch of stuff like that, or like these, within a fairly short period of time. It's just a really nice workflow. So like this guy, I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm feeling perhaps that he could be asymmetrical. We already have the asymmetry going on because we got the big sword there. And perhaps we could actually have that sword blade coming down the other side. Maybe it's just one of these like legendarily huge swords. It felt like a little off. Just that. Yep. There we go. Yeah, so I think this is a good call for some asymmetry here. I'm going to just thicken that up a little bit. Give a point to it. This is also a place where if you want to be working on a sword, come in here, just giving a couple of little notches to it. Just plays up the silhouette, makes it a little more interesting. Then here, I'm thinking that this could be open like a cloak, but it's not completely even. Like there's more cloak on the left side, the right side. Got that, and maybe it goes around the back side. This side could be higher as well. I'm not really concerned about the boot or the foot shape right now. That's something I would deal with later. I'm just putting the camera view really low so that either way it wouldn't be enough to really change it up too much. Yeah, so I think that works as a silhouette. You can get that quite small, and you'd be able to tell the difference between the two of those without any real problem. Having this fan shape there on the shoulders of this guy, and then his normal silhouette would be him having that sword sticking out down there, and this guy would normally be holding his sword. So that would keep it really differentiated. Even if they were in the same class as soldiers, you could have that sort of difference. Okay, what about this guy? I feel like maybe this one actually has some sort of tall helmet thing going on. So let's actually do that. Maybe get rid of this little collar shape there. Sort of shape. There were some of the other designs that I did the pointed helmets on. Who was that? These? Yeah, some of these I gave like the pointy helmets to. So maybe that would be a consistent thing. Although that looks a bit like Shredder. He's got a helmet like that, doesn't he? He had like the tall point on the top and then the wide pieces here. All right, so we don't want to just have Shredder. We've got to change that up. It's iconic, right? That series of shapes and points is iconic to that particular character. I think he's got these things, right? He's got the little curvy things right there. Yeah. Okay. Also notice, I'm not just doing it for the stream. I don't zoom in more than this during this point in the process. You don't need to be closer than this. You don't need to zoom in. If you zoom into this, you're going to be getting too finicky with it. And you're not going to be getting the broad silhouette as well as when you're working from here. So if you're following this process, make sure that you're staying out towards this sort of level with it. And then once you move to the next stage, that's when you can start zooming up and doing a little more detail-y work. I do not like some of the patterns going on in here. So what I can do is recognize that they're coming from this particular layer. So I'm going to just go over here and I can paint these black in the mask. Boom. Hear that? That's not an issue anymore. On the other ones, I had accent layers that were different colors. So the main layer was the greens, and then I added in the orange tones. You can see the two different tones here. One was like the greenish tones, the other one was reddish tones. And then also I had a third one, which is an exposure. Some areas were light, some areas were dark. Let's see about adding. We could add the warm ones just because this one's cool to look at. I'll just kind of show you how this works. Let's come in here and grab the fire one. Hot embers. Kind of cool. And then each one of these can have its own mask to it. So I can just paint this out. And then if I want to, anything that I want that, you know, red layer to come through, like maybe I want his sword have a little red sheen to it there. Okay, cool. I can paint that in, or maybe like all the feather shapes on this guy, maybe all that upper feather area could be, oh, layers. Maybe all of this. So you're looking for what can be the accent points, and you're usually looking for something that's sort of iconic about that particular silhouette. In this case, it would be sort of the shoulder pattern there. For him, maybe it's the sword. Maybe it's the gauntlets. Maybe he has like the really bright gauntlets, that sort of thing. Or you're going to just try to do like all of his cloak has that red coming out of it. Right. So you can build those in that way. I'll turn it off for now. I just kind of want to show it to you. Because this one's kind of cool because it can give you some really nice colors. Immediately get that really hot, you know, fire sort of glow to it. Oh, wrong layer. Get to where we painted that out. Go back up to this. Perhaps it actually has some sort of sign on the top. Something different. Feels a bit like a kind of like a samurai sort of thing going on. Okay. And this is exactly the sort of thing that you could put in at this stage and be like, that's not the design that I want. But at this point, this is just an iteration. And I'm just putting it in because it's going to represent what would be defined later if that is an accepted direction. And that's really, I think, the best way to think about it is, even at this stage, what you're trying to do is just get a good image direction or character direction, which would then be expounded later down the line. It's not usually so quiet in here. I think a lot of people's minds are being blown. Yeah, guys, feel free to chat amongst yourself if you want to. And also, you know, toss more comments or questions if you have them. Second one's cloak reminds me a bit of the Witcher 3 armors. Does it? I did not play it, but that must mean it's pretty good design, right? Great minds think alike, as they say. All right, so I think that'll work for now. We've got that sort of thing going on here. Then we have like a really kind of odd long head to it. I want to do some really odd shaped ones later, but I don't know that it really fits for this. We could play with it just for kicks and giggles. I wasn't really going to use this design direction for this guy, but for fun, right? Number one, it reminds me of Sugoki from For Honor. Oh, yeah. I watched some people play For Honor. There are some seriously nice character designs in that game. If you guys are looking for some good references as far as armor, textures, that sort of thing, go take a look at what they did for the game For Honor. Nice ones. Yeah, I'm almost thinking of like there's this almost like a bell-like long long design there. I think maybe I don't want to change. I don't want to push down the rest of the anatomy too much. So I'm gonna just make this one extra tall. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to shorten the rest of the body. And we just got like this really weird tall helmet. Maybe he's supposed to be visible over the battlefield. These feel like maybe not what I need right there, or they need to be simplified a little. Can I mimic the same sort of shape? Something similar on these. Like that might be a good play. I can reuse some of the same designs. Yeah, and here, in this case, I don't feel like he's really fitting in with the rest of them, but he's also got something unique going on. So I'm going to go with it, and it may be that later I would actually sort him into a different group. And I've done that before. I just happened chance came across a design that felt good, even though it didn't fit. But I did save that design, and I just started a different group with it. So I kind of like the idea of a character group that has these sort of odd bell-shaped helmets. Maybe they're even like automatons. Yeah. But he could still have like a big blade. And look for places where a negative space could be helpful to tell information. Like they're just separating those two so that you have a better idea that they're different things. Then I feel like I need to get back to a little more of a natural proportions here. Or maybe you can't really see his arms. Yeah, I feel like this sort of character probably has a cloak. And it comes down the arms. Almost like a poncho style sort of thing going on. Just see the hands kind of come out. Then this, sometimes I forget if I left it on white or black, and I don't look over there. I don't ever look at the white or black. I just click back and forth till I get the one that I want. What do we do here? I feel like this really needs to widen out on the bottom. Yeah. And I have a very simple silhouette across here. Almost feel like his legs could be close together. I think he's this odd character. Like he stands really, really still until you get into his proximity, and then he probably moves really quickly and makes a lot of noise. I don't know. I just kind of think in terms of like if I came across this guy in a game, what do I expect him to be? I'd expect him to be this odd character that you would see and you would definitely recognize, but you're not really sure what he's about to do. And he doesn't really move until you get right up there to him. And again, very clear silhouette there. Maybe he also has the blade. I just feel like it makes a little more sense if you can see the blade kind of sticking out down there. Yeah. Change that silhouette up a little bit. This is also somewhere that we've got that round shape on the top. So I'm going to think perhaps got like little round things or bells or something like that along the bottom there. Just I'm going to change that up, give him a little different design there than the rest of them have. Yep. And then for the next one, I feel like we've already done like the wide shoulders with the feathery things, but maybe this one could be more of a armor piece. Also wide, but it's more of an armor. Some people in fantasy, they'll add like these actually pointless like, protrusions of nuts, bolts coming out of the armor pieces as if they're somehow mechanical. But they look good on its silhouette, so we could try putting those in. So to start with, it's kind of got like a curvy thing going on there. I think perhaps he just has like a high collar. Then he's bolts that stick out. Now, as far as the sword, I want the sword there, or do I want the sword? We might move the sword on this one just so that these shoulder pieces. Shoulder pieces are what? Pauldrons? Pauldron. And I am using this brush, which is the normal round brush. If you haven't ever played with it, you can just get the regular round brush, you know, that just does this, right? 100% opacity and pressure sensitive as far as size. And then you can just get it and you can squish it and put it at an angle. I just find that it gives me a little more variety than the normal brush. Okay. And then I'm thinking that this sword is along this side. Perhaps this arm is out here. Holding that. Yeah. And I'm not having to get fancy with the poses on this. Again, this is just basic silhouette design. There are some people that do really good stuff with a lot of character poses in their silhouettes, and you can absolutely go for that. That's just not what I'm trying to accomplish with these and this process. So do keep that in mind. Feel free to play with that, but doing here. Then this would be a place where you would again put those same sort of bumps, bolts sticking out there. Yeah. Right now, are you making the 5 silhouettes as if they will ever meet each other? Same question. I mean, we were talking about doing different characters. Yes and no. This is still would be pretty early in the concept phase. Same question when you made the 16 characters from above. Yeah, this is still fairly on in the concepting. So I am open to actually each one of these being a different class. Each one of these could be a different class of its own and not necessarily part of the same group. I'm not really stuck to that yet. If they're similar, like some of these are similar enough that you could probably have them in the same group and they would register. But I am looking for variety. Basically, as much variety as I can really get, given that it's still within that basic framework. Um, I don't. Hopefully, that answers your question. Okay, what else? Maybe he's got like another item over here. Feel like maybe we could do this. He's getting a bit of a Garen vibe, a League of Legends kind of Garen silhouette there. And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Sort of liking that. Maybe it stays a little lower here. Like the wide, going wide around each side. Yeah. He's just really wide through the lower part here, and then wide through the upper part there. Just the iconic bits sticking out. Now this is I'm getting lost here and here with the bolt sticking out. I think that's because of the metal layer. Now this is another one. I'll just come in here and I'm gonna take that out a little bit just so those edges can read a little better. Modify that slightly. For the last one, what are we going to do with this guy? Don't know. We'll start playing with it and see what we get. Down a little bit, maybe some sort of shape there. Here. I'm having a hard time seeing some of these shapes. Yep. And then I'll show you one other thing after I kind of do a little work on this guy. Yep. Last one, he could be holding the sword with both hands. The problem with holding the sword with both hands is that it gets lost within the shape of the body. Unless he's like got the sword way up high, extended way out in front of him. Otherwise, you have like both hands doing this sort of thing, and then you just can't make that out from a silhouette. These are really simple poses, but they work because of you've got to be able to make out the pose. The pose variety isn't something I really care about very much in this level of illustration process. I didn't mean for that to about the others. No, but I mean, just to be clear, that's not a bad idea. It's a good idea, and eventually you would want that. Eventually you would want to go in there and you'd want to add, holding it with two hands, holding it with one hand, more action. He's walking, he's turning, that sort of thing. But just for now, uh, I wouldn't really be able to make that read. The spikes on the shoulders look kind of like he could have dual weapons. Yeah. I like the double circle. Now that's even a design that we could use over there. Yeah, that's a nice little series of shapes that I could use on something else as well. Yeah, so he could have like a long sword here. And then he could have another weapon as well. And I'm, of course, just using the line tool to make the really long line. I'm not sure what those are. I just thought they were interesting shapes. And so sometimes with the silhouette, you just do what's interesting and then later you try to figure out what it is. MS, I'm going to try this cool technique. Yeah, definitely try it. Honestly, this is one I've just had fun sitting here doing it just while I have like a TV show on or something. Um, Anything else about this technique that thinking about? Yeah, just go to Unsplash or Pexels, look up some different photos that have different sort of textures to them. I didn't really show that for very long. So I've got one that's armor. Um, this one is just uh, cool charcoal ash and trees. Some of my character designs were going to be nature based, like dryad sort of characters. And so I have several that are green, and it's just grass, copied and copied and copied. Some grassy rocks. Thought it was sort of a neat pattern, and I just copied it all over the place. Stone, redstone that had some really neat shapes in it. Oxenstone with green mossy stuff. Moss trees. Uh, Weird metal shapes. Actually, this one might be kind of interesting to use on the we just have here. I forgot I made this one. Let's see if we can get anything interesting out of it. This other metal layer isn't doing a lot for me. This one, we will probably need to duplicate it. It's not big enough. That's okay. Push it down like that. Nope. I need to duplicate that. Okay. Okay. Auto select keeps trying to grab the top layer mask instead of just moving the layer that I'm on. Okay. As long as we know what it is, we can try to fix it. Now, maybe I want to use some sort of brighten layer to it. Kind of like the hard light on it. maybe getting it more into the blue range with the rest of it. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to put that on and inverse it. And real quickly, I'll just play with the rest of this. I probably won't be real happy with it, but we've got that, and then what else? Something different here. He could have another sword. Yeah, just for kicks, real quick, I'll add like another sword. Kind of doing this sort of thing. Yeah. If you have a layer over top that you don't want being auto-selected, you can click the little padlock icon and it will ignore that layer. Yeah, you can lock the layer, but I keep having to go to that layer and work, so I don't want to have to turn it on and off as I'm working. I do like the top of this one, so I'm just going to grab that, copy it over here. Go. Sword on that side. Okay. Then like he could have billowy sleeves, sort of bottom heavy shapes. Yeah, and that's a little different. Instead of just the big armor plates, have like one armor piece up there, then it's billowy sleeves. If like you just have like a belt here. There's out a bit at the bottom. They all kind of have the wide bottom shape, which keeps them a consistent silhouette there. Okay, cool. Now let's go up to our other layer and play with pulling out some other forms within this. Like if I pulled out the shapes, these things, what would we? It's almost too bright. It gets too close to my background tone there. Oh, is there anything I want to do about it? Yeah, I could just lower the opacity of it. Not sure how I'd break that one up. Going on there. Yeah, the problem is if I do that, we lose the shape there. So perhaps here we want to do the inner shape. And I don't really care that this represents the actual color or anything. Just sort of using it to differentiate between different pieces on character. Yeah. Not really getting me something I really care about. Something else you can do though is I have the shadow one here, but let me show you. You can just come up here to exposure, just add another exposure layer, set the exposure down low, and I'm gonna set that out of here. Then I can come in here and basically paint in drop shadows in order to create a little form. And for that, I'm gonna play around with brush. So you could create a sort of two-tone pattern if there was going to be like clear drop shadow. I like some of the shapes going on. Let's play up some of them. Yeah. So let's creation of those. I do want to add like some pops of color or something to it that be a little different. That color might go well with it. What if we did the lava, but it was... Okay, where's this for a second? What if it was like a different color? Reversed it. Not really consistent enough for me to get those the results that I'm really um yeah, this is the one of the strengths of layer mask. You don't use layer mask very much. Really get some cool effects out of it. When these Yeah, this is getting me closer to something I really like. I didn't mean to do it on that layer there. What do you guys think about that? Any questions on this? You think you're going to go play around with this approach? You can see that you can get some pretty good results pretty fast. Yeah, it looks like fun. Cool, cool. That's what I was hoping. I was just like, hey, if you've never played with this sort of design approach, then give it a shot. You might really like it. I'm trying to tint all of it to blue instead of some of that graying out. It's getting a little too flat for me. So, okay, yeah, that's better. A couple of ways you could go about it. Had to go through a couple before I found one I really liked. For this one, I was thinking that you could have that sort of pattern like going all the way down. Of this thing coming down. That could work, or it's just there on the helmet, and I think that could work. Well, it just doesn't tell you as much information. Get a little bottom piece. Yeah. For this one, you could have just like the bolt things that stick up can all be. It's kind of neat. I think making the swords a different color is a nice way to make them pop out. Hmm. Yeah, you could be really bold if you wanted to have the main design in that color. Almost too much, though, I feel like. Yeah, I think that's too much accent. Gotta figure out something that's less than that. Just the hands or something. Hmm. No. And with the sword, possibly. I kind of like the ends of them that way. Some blue highlights on the belt, possibly. Yeah, on his belt, on there. Yeah, and these are just ideas, right? You have to go play around with these before you find a combination that you really like. But that I would be pretty happy with that as far as just playing around with the general approach and kind of showing off what this process could give you. And we're right about on time. I was looking to go for about 4 o'clock, and we're 3 minutes till. I don't see any extra questions to address. But if you missed the beginning of the stream, just a reminder, we have the illustration. I'll have that up. Announcement. Oh yeah, I have that on the top there. The illustration class, illustrating commissions, the professionals process class is going up on Skillshare. This is the content that I created last June through Patreon. It has been adjusted some to fit Skillshare's lessons, where each part of the class is broken up into about 5-minute segments. So you can really get a simple step-by-step and handle that step before you move on to the next step. I example everything, but going along with it, we will have a new art challenge based on the class project that you can find on that page. And that class project / art challenge, and it's art challenge if you want to get feedback from me, is the first star to the right. This is a mashup of multiple fantasy characters that you would be familiar with: Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Bagheera the leopard team up to fight this new threat that is messing with the other worlds. And there is a list of 5 different scenes that you can try out. And if you want to give that a shot and get feedback from me, then you'll need to pick up a ticket tomorrow when they go on sale on the Gumroad store. I will post links when those are posted and where to go pick those up. I will assume that you are going to go out and watch the material on Skillshare, and then afterwards post your work on Skillshare's site. That is a really good way to show other people what that class is about. After you go through the class project, post what you created from the class so that other people can be inspired to follow the material as well. Okay, if you have any comments or questions about this episode or what we talked about, feel free to leave them in the comments here on the YouTube channel. Otherwise, go to the Discord and I will catch you out there. Thanks so much for taking the time. Until you see you next time.